Hello, welcome to another tonalist landscape oil painting demonstration. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy, and the painting I'm bringing you today has the title of Sunset 9 by 12. Sorry, I couldn't. I probably should have come up with something better, but this is a pretty interesting painting, and the members area would be definitely one to tune into because it's actually in the members area going to be two videos. The first, I started this painting teaching a local student, so there's about 3 hours of what I would be teaching and telling you if we were doing this painting together. Um, and then the second half is we didn't actually, she had to move on, so we never actually finished painting. I just had it sitting there. So I finished it this year. It was about a year apart, actually. Um, and we're still great friends, you know, and I'm a big supporter of hers. But you know, you can only teach someone for so long before they get what you got to give them. Yep. Anyway, there's a lot there, but then there's the finish, which is another maybe 2 hours or so. I split them up in the members area because I know a lot of times when people see a video that's going to be, you know, 5, 6 hours or something like that, go, you know, but very valuable for anyone wanting to learn about painting, I think. And so I've been sitting on this a while. And there's another thing that's going to be interesting about this is like I thought it was done, and pretty close to the end you'll see me pick it up again. And I have and I'll recommend you have something like this too, like a little area where you put your paintings as they're drying. Someplace like, you know, close to where you hang out and have your coffee and stuff, you know, or visit with your friends and family and things. And you can maybe while you're having conversations with people, you know, kind of cast your eye on your work, and a lot of times things will jump out at you. In this particular case, you see that little house I indicated down below. It was quite drab, quite boring, and I thought it was done, but that was almost the focal point of the painting, and it was letting me down. So you can see I turned that into like a little red house slash barn, whatever. It's not that detailed, so it could be either one. Yeah. You know what I thought would be good in this video to talk about would be like how I approach teaching here locally. And you know, it's not much different than things I cover on the in the members area, but in the members area they're going to be scattered all around over the last 2 years that we've had, you know, live videos and things like that. First thing, of course, I always talk about is board size, the proportions you use, the boards that you paint on are canvases. You know, a lot of people like canvas because they don't have to worry about framing. I don't really, I do enjoy canvas texture if it's a very fine linen, but then you've got to deal with stretching or buying very expensive pre-stretched canvases, stretcher bars. Also, I do so much work from the masters that it's not hard to see the crazing and cracking that occurs when things are on a piece of fabric stretched over a stretcher bar. Now, the whole reason for that, it was an innovation, was due to the fact that panels, when you get into larger work, become unwieldy and very heavy, hard to transport, etc., where canvases can be rolled up quite often and stretched on the spot, etc. Yeah, so that's where canvases started coming into play. Most painters back in the day were working on panels and things, or sometimes they might, if they really liked that texture, they might have affixed the canvas to a panel, which I probably recommend over a stretcher bar, but I'm no expert on this stuff, so don't quote me. Anyway, you know, before I forget, there's a interesting thing that changed in this painting, and you see over on our right hand side, you see that kind of roundy tree, and there's a gap with sky coming down. That was one of the things I decided to close up completely, so I'll point out to you when we get in the second half of the video, and you can we can talk about that some more. But so after getting, and the thing is too with proportions, like you can get a lot of nice ready-made frames if you work in pre-configured proportions, like 8 by 10 or 5 by 7 or 6 by 8. Even this one, 9 by 12, you can find ready-made frames that size, 11 by 14, 12 by 16. 16 by 20, 18 by 24, sometimes 2024. Then things tend to jump up into like 24, 36, things like that. 22, 28 was always a standard size back in my 20s when I was a picture framer. Anyway, so we go over that stuff, and then we talk about paint. And you know, with paint, what I always have to say is you can use, you need to have some discernment, and you need to have some exposure and experience. There are some brands where the student grade type paints are just fine to use. There are some pigments where it's not recommended. Generally, I think anything marked like cadmium hue, cadmium yellow hue, cad red hue, those are going to be way weaker than your actual cadmiums. So if you're starting out with painting and you haven't had any direct exposure to real cadmium, it's probably worth your while to save your pennies and get and they can be quite expensive. A 37 mil tube can be, you know, 40, well out here 40, 50 New Zealand, maybe they're 30, 40 American. But there's a level of opacity and color saturation in the actual cadmium that is the reason why it's on most professional painters' palettes. Now, the nice thing about the hue variations, which they all have names in the Gamblin line, you know, like Perylene Red and Permanent Orange, etc., is that they're non-toxic, where the cadmiums are fairly toxic. You need to be careful with that. And so we talk about paints, and the other thing with the paints is that I always encourage, depending on, like, my favorite type of student is an intermediate student, such as yourself, probably like yourself. This is where I'm strong. I have to teach remedial students, and there, you know, what we'll do is we'll start with a limited palette, and that would be black and white. I can change it up, but a good minimum palette for you might be black, white, cad yellow, cad red. Whichever blue you like. I mean, you can go ultramarine, or you could go phthalo. I'd say maybe phthalo, you know. And then just start mixing your colors from those three primaries. And a lot of times when I am working that way, what I'll do is mix piles of secondaries. So I'll take the yellow and red and make a pile of orange. I'll take the blue and yellow and make a pile of green. Actually, most likely I might even make the green out of some black and yellow. That's a big tip for you right there, just sneaking it in. Anyway, if you're just starting out, yeah, you're better off starting out with a minimal palette. From that minimal palette, I might add colors like burnt sienna. I might add a color like yellow ochre. You can do a lot with those. Alizarin crimson. Actually, alizarin crimson might even be a candidate for a minimum palette instead of cad red. This is very flexible and gives you better things, but it gives you better like sienna type tones. Although if you've got the black on there, you can get yourself a sienna. It'll be an opaque sienna with some black, some red, and some yellow, you know. Anyway, after we go over the paints and stuff, talk about brushes. And brushes, that's I generally like mid-price brushes. Like the brush you see me painting with in this painting is a Robert Simmons Signet series. It's a flat. Those I really like, but lately I've been using some cheaper brushes because I figure it's probably good to get used to the sorts of things that are going to be around when there's supply problems in the world, which just seems to be the way things are going these days. So on the cheaper side, I've been using these DAS brushes. They're blue, and they're really very reasonable, and they will do things like drop hairs, and the real thing with but they work fine. In fact, they end up breaking in. I don't think they last as long either as the Robert Simmons Signet. They seem to wear a little quicker, but I've had some $2 and $3 brushes that have developed into really nice brushes. That's the thing too, your brushes, you start with a flat, but they end up becoming brights, you know. And if you clean your brushes properly, which is another thing I go over with my students, is I always use a brush soap. I start with a jar with some mineral spirits and a little screen in it, and clean my brushes as well as I can that way. And then I always use the brush soap to finish up, and your brushes will last nearly forever if you do that. If you don't have brush soap, you can use like hand soap or dish soap. That works as well. Not as well, but it does work. After brushes, so boards, paints, brushes, there you go. We get into approaches and techniques, which I won't get too far into here because we won't have that much time. By the way, you see we're well into the finish. And this painting sat there in that drying area for a year. And one day I says, I'm going to finish you. And I did. Yeah. And you can see how I closed up that gap that was on the right hand side, and that made the painting so much stronger. And that's a compositional thing, and we talk a lot about composition in this channel, and the best way to learn composition is through experience, which gets in the kinds of things I will tell my students. I tell them they should be painting every day. And don't peck away on some giant potential masterpiece every day. That's a really not the best way to learn. There's a time and place for that, and that's after you've got quite a few paintings under your belt. If you haven't done a lot of paintings, the odds of you creating a masterpiece are not great. It is possible, though. I mean, I have seen talented people pull it off, but if you're not in the uber genius class, you're just a normal person like me. The best way to get good is by doing lots and lots and lots of work. And so what I recommend is that they find a time every day that's about the same time, so that on the days when they're choosing not to paint, their conscience clicks in, goes, oh, you know, you're not painting a day, and they either have to make some lame excuse to themselves why they're not doing it, or they did even better, which is say, oh, I better just go do some painting because it's important to me to get good, and this is something I want to master. You cannot get mastery without some attitude like that. And that's, you know, another thing after a lesson, and then maybe and in your case, if you're, you know, in the members area, you know, watching the live, you know, watch a bit of video or watch this, and then turn off the computer, turn off the TV, and go sit in your paint area and make a painting. And, you know, you might even feel like, oh, no, I'm not feeling that good, I got a headache, da 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 da. But just force yourself. You get over there and make it happen. And you know what? You'll feel really good about yourself then. And if you can do that every day in a regular manner, not only will you find that you become incredibly good really fast, like everything you wanted when you decided to get on YouTube looking at painting videos. That's the way to get it, you know. Not only will you find that, but you'll have a great feeling of accomplishment in your life, you know, instead of being a lazy consumer of videos and movies, video games, or God knows what else, or just scrolling on the Instagrams or the telegrams or any of these things where you can just kill time. Instead of becoming a consumer, you become a producer. The producers are happier people. I'm going to just say that right here and now. People that make things, people that do things are happier. So that's really a big key to being a happy person, and that's my advice to you. Anyway, I can see we're close to the end. Thank you so much for joining me today. Like I said, this would be a really good one to check out in the members area. That's $6. Also, I'll have this up in my store. I'm going to pop it up in the store. I'm really happy with the way it came out, and I'd love to move it along. We'll do this one for $300. So that'll be the price in the store, and you'll see a link for that under the video. Also, you'll see a link to the members area a little below that, and that's very reasonable, $6 a month. And there you can tip in and tip out. Anyway, till I come back with another video, do me a favor, do me a solid. Take good care of yourself, your family, all your loved ones. Be patient with people that have opinions that are differing from yours, and because you don't know everything. God bless you and your family. Take good care. Stay out of trouble.